Hey guys, I'm back. It's Marilyn, and for this video I wanted to come back and recreate my dream look being a Tumblr girl in the 2010s. Whenever I think of fall makeup, I think of like a really warm smoky eye with a wing, lashes, and a dark lip, and to me that sounds like it needs a dip brow pomade eyebrow. So I really wanted to kind of mash up my idea of a fall look, especially since it's getting colder now here. So if you'd like to learn how to recreate this look, I mean, I'm sure we all know how to do it. This is just for fun, to give you a little update. But if you want to keep up with me, make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Marilynmugbeat. Let me know what other spooky videos you want to see from me coming up for October. And with all that said, let's get into this look. So for the main piece, I'm going to be starting off with this black milk clothing all over skull print dress. I actually got it for like $20 or $15 off of Depop, I think last summer. So I've been collecting all of this stuff for a while now. Here's what it looks like on, and to complete the look, I'm just going to throw a top over this. There was a really big resurgence of like this all over print on this type of like, I don't know, not even screen printed. It's like a really flat type of printing that they do into the fabric. The most popular was leggings. I always really wanted this dress or like the skirt, the cathedral tights. I don't know if you remember those. The images of just like the products alone would go viral all the time on on Tumblr. But there's one image in particular of this sneaky lipstick death shirt, and I actually got like the death metal matching ones to share with my sister. So I still kept it because I really do love like the styling, and I kind of wanted to recreate the image that I'm thinking about. So the t-shirt in that, maybe I'll like put it into the video here, but it basically is shredded, and honestly I don't have time to do all that right now. So let me show you what I thought I'd do to give it that same effect. I just put the shirt on really quickly, but all you're gonna need is a little hair tie, and I cut this gauze that I got from the 99-cent store. So I'm just tucking it in and tying it off just to the length that I want it to, and tucking it in the back. And anyway, since I'm curvier, I like my stuff to fit tighter. If it's like just cropped, it flares out and makes me look a little too boxy. So this method is actually more my style. And it's kind of too long to go around me. I'm gonna have to wrap it a couple times. So I tied it off here to the side, and I'm just gonna take some scissors and make this a little shorter. It's kind of long, but it pretty much gives the same effect of the shredded look. This is my shredded belt, I guess. I've been doing this a lot lately, and especially with how outdated this type of print is, the layer of texture makes it look a little less corny, but it's still, I feel like I would have worn this back then if I had it. This was the It Girl shoe. I actually thrifted these. It is a long boot version. I would have killed to have these back in the day. Those were the Jeffrey Campbell Litas, of course. If you could believe it, I only paid half off, so $10 for these. They are a little beat up, and they don't fit me because my calves are too big. So I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna do with these. Probably end up selling them or giving them to someone. I really miss these types of platforms that are encapsulated in part of the foot. Now like the double platforms or visible ones are really popular, but for my frame, I feel like when you have a bigger shoe like this, it really like gives volume to like your feet. It kind of evens me out. So I love having the big stompiness at the bottom, and they're overall more comfortable, but I can't fit these. So I feel like we can't forget about the J fashion influence that there was on the whole Tumblr culture with the street style, and you can especially see it now with all of the avant basic stuff that's happening on TikTok. To me, it just reminds me of like Shironuri, which is what I'm really inspired by. These are the shoes and bag I'm gonna wear. And this purse is by the Japanese brand Baby the Stars Shine Bright. I picked it up for like $100 in their store in San Francisco, and even though I do not wear EGL fashion, because it has a lot of dedication and research and rules for me personally. Having this piece in my collection is just kind of showing my appreciation for Japanese fashion and my knowledge, because even though I don't dress in it, it is really impactful to me and with my whole obsession with subcultural fashion. I just recently bought these shoes. They are by D'Andre, and even though they are from that era, back then on Tumblr, this brand was really popular for their collared dresses. I actually recently also thrifted one of those, if you could believe it. So the only original item I have is this shirt. All of this stuff is recent, and also I have been rewatching Nana. Back then, like, Tumblr was a really good resource for reading and getting into different fandoms, and it reminded me of these shoes. They kind of remind me of like the Vivienne Westwood rocking horse, but I personally have wide feet, so I feel like I would topple over in those since they're so flat. So these are the ones that I wanted to purchase to kind of do my version of the Vivienne Westwood rocking horse and heart-shaped purse. And we can completely see the resurgence of that whole aesthetic with the Vivienne Westwood necklaces that recently went viral on TikTok. I don't really have a whole bunch of space, but it's funny to see myself like with no makeup, with my glasses in this, because this is probably what I would have looked like back then in it. I'm kind of happy that I have the skills and the money to do it now properly, so let's get into it. I'm like sitting down to film this and I feel so empty, and I know exactly what to put on. It's kind of yellowing because I've literally had it since back then, but I mean, I'm sure you can find these types of chokers on eBay and stuff now. When I had purchased it, it was from this shop in LA, or that used to be in like Hollywood, called Glitter Death. I don't know if anyone remembers that store. I actually have worn it in like a couple things, but I feel like it's not really my style. That feels a little better. I'm gonna slap on some high coverage foundation real quick. And I have my little butterfly clear clips. Especially back in the Tumblr days, I feel like the 90s and really like any decade era had its own community. But grunge, the whole soft grunge, Courtney Love thing was really in. And the trend today that's mirroring that is the coquette Lana Del Rey vinyl aesthetic. I was more of a Marina girl. I remember I actually found out about her in a magazine that they were playing her music on the runway. I've only recently become a Lana casual listener. I am packing on a very light concealer, very heavily everywhere. This is how we did it, nice and cut. One of the things that I'm grateful that we kind of learned from this era was that less is more. I don't wear concealer like this anymore, but when I think about it, back then we were really doing this because we wanted to look flawless and perfect. Most of the time, compared to today's soft glam, we didn't look that flawless in real life. I'll just say that. I had plenty of bad skin days, awful skin, but I feel like at least you can look back and like say that we figured it out. I was a teenager during this era, so I had bad skin anyway. And I will be using that concealer to carve out my brows again, so there will be more, but it's time for the dreaded 2010s dip brow eyebrow. But I am gonna tailor my look to be a little bit more like alternative, like goth, how I was back then. I still pretty much do my eyebrows the same way, just thinner now. I remember buying dip brow once and I didn't like it, so I just used straight up eyeliner. This is probably worse. And I used to shave my eyebrows back then too. To me, honestly, they looked worse when I tried to fill in my natural brow. I'm gonna go for like a super shapely brow though. I feel like that was very 2010s. If it wasn't that, it was like a really straight brow. I usually do start off at the ends just so that it's the darkest here, but they're gonna be pretty blocky anyway. Today at least. And just when you think they're too big, they're not big enough. But looking back, brows weren't that bad. I kind of miss these big brows. They are a very specific look. I'll give them that. I used to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and spend 30 minutes doing these crazy brows every morning in high school. We all start somewhere. If it wasn't for her, I would not be here now. I remember coming home from school every day too, and don't really think I did much homework, but I would make sure to spend hours on Tumblr every day. The best part to me was getting to see all of like the text posts and music recommendations. Like, it wasn't 15 seconds or 10 seconds. You can write paragraphs and poems and reblog full songs. It was a whole thing.
One of the bigger points that I see really brought up today on TikTok is about archive fashion, and that's one of like the predecessors, especially on Tumblr, of reblogging a lot of fashion. I really hope that you enjoyed my recreation in the beginning, but I mean, I was only able to afford that stuff now, 10 years later, when it's like dirt cheap. But we were looking at and aspiring to things even bigger than like all of that. Whether it was more expensive or cheap, it didn't really matter. Like today, there's so much accessibility and you can just plop stuff up that fits your aesthetic. But I mean, that was really where it started. It's kind of crazy to look back and see kind of how crazy this outfit was, because I see people wearing way, way bigger stuff now. I don't know if like all this crazy fast fashion was what we were going for back then, but like just seeing the accessibility of all of this very specific clothes is honestly kind of amazing though.
I really want to talk the music and specifically about like the goth scene on Tumblr. That's where I mostly was. And the main reason I wanted to recreate this makeup was because of this palette. This is the Love of Sin palette by Fire Vixen. And if I had the choice to get a sort of warm-toned eyeshadow palette today, this one would definitely be it. I honestly didn't have the Modern Renaissance palette, my sister did.
I'm gonna build up the crease with the oranges in here, Ritual, Haunting, and Lover.
When I first got into goth on Tumblr, besides the whole spooky kid, I guess kind of Manson, satanic panic type, you have to remember the 90s was what was cool, so that was the goth style of the 90s, I guess. But eventually I did find the light and make my way over to traditional gothic style. Back then, I remember this gorgeous photo book was being produced. I never got my hands on it, but I've seen it around in different galleries, so I definitely need to pick it up. It's called Somewhere Leather, Somewhere Lace. And just seeing like all the different YouTubers back then, Sebastian Columbine, Drac Macon, those were the goths that raised me back then. And just being able to like do this now in any capacity, like for someone else, is so surreal to me. I know I've been kind of gone and I want to give like a little update, but literally I just was living my dream. I got a whole bunch of different opportunities to work with TikTok itself for Pride. I did a lot of work with my favorite band's makeup. I feel like especially now all the algorithms are kind of made to like keep your attention really short. Long form content on YouTube like this, even though it makes me really sad to admit, like it's not as popular as TikTok. People in general don't really have the attention span anymore. To be honest, I don't either. And adding a cut crease with the shades Espirito and Rosario. I see a lot of parallels on TikTok that already happened during the Tumblr time. It seems that trad goth is still really popular with a lot of newcomers, and honestly, to me, whenever Charlotte Sometimes comes on, I can already feel a crisp fall, winter breeze coming. Like, it really puts me in that mindset, and I don't know if this makes sense, especially since that's the sub-style that I first fell in love with. It makes me feel young. Like whenever I listen to Faith by The Cure, it It makes me feel like a kid again, which I wasn't a kid in the 80s. I was a kid on Tumblr. But along with that trend of the same styles becoming popular all over again, a lot of the same dramas are still happening. Not that it's like controversial or anything that's serious, but I'm not too much into cosplay, but those freaking demonias with all the buckles became popular again. And I remember back then, like during the height of Tumblr fashion, we were already making fun of those. I think they were like the Thrasher platform, kind of like a wedge style. I'll put a picture of it somewhere. But then all of a sudden that shoe became popular again with some cosplay character, like the little schoolgirl with the pink braids, and now they're known as that character's cosplay shoes, but we already went through this back then. I'm kind of dreading having to do a cut crease. It's not my favorite, especially now that my eyelids are getting a little worn in. I really have to like cut up across my eye. How are we doing this at 5 o'clock in the morning every day? And honestly, even back then, I feel like I didn't even wear like a warm eye like this. If I would have had this palette back then, I probably would have. But the same way that like today they say that nothing is trending because everything is trending like simultaneously, that's what was happening in all of these different fandoms on Tumblr. I wasn't really into anything back then besides like Drag Race, which still I am. There's too many franchises now to keep up with it, but I would always find the links to watch it on Tumblr back in the day. That's where I first heard of the Rocky Horror Picture Show and found out about my own local little chapter of them. But I think one of the most important things I first began to find out about and see discussions on Tumblr was about gender and different pronouns and stuff like that. That's where I first had heard about neo-pronouns and non-binary and gender expression and gender non-conforming, and exploring fashion and style through that lens as well. This glitter is so pretty. I'm kind of looking at myself with all this glam and thinking, what am I gonna do to my hair? Was there like a Tumblr hair look? I probably would have been happy with having long hair like this back then. So I probably won't do much. But now I'm thinking, like, what were the trends? Okay, I'm getting off topic. I'm gonna draw in my liner real quick and I'll come back. I feel like a lot of the girls that went viral back then, like, kind of were ahead of the curve and knew how to do that little eyeliner trick where they make it like fit the shape of their eyes. I could never figure out how they would do that. I just went with thick whatever came out that day, and that's kind of what happened today. My wings are not perfect, but this is probably what they look like back then. And this was the time before the 25mm eyelash, so none of that today. I'm just using these little dollar store Halloween ones. I need to hurry up, but for contour, I'm gonna go in with this cool toned blush shade. It's by LA Girl in the shade Just Because. I'm rushing because I'm about to go see the new Halloween movie. It doesn't get much more fall than that. I'm still mad at NYX for discontinuing the taupe contour. Nothing will ever top that shade. That is what I used to use back in the day. And now they broke our hearts by discontinuing the freaking eyeliner. I'm excited to show the full outfit. I'm going to be wearing this like cute cheetah jacket to match the shoes. It reminds me a lot of Hypodermic Sally. I'm just gonna haphazardly do my nose. We didn't know how to do the little highlight trick. I am actually proud of my old nose contour though, because I used to take a long time on that too. For highlight, this is literally what I used to use back in the day. It's an old pastel goth Wet n Wild one. it still lasted me from back then, and you can't forget the fan brush. But back to the hypodermic Sally, I think it's so funny. Another one where history is repeating itself is the normal people scare me thing from American Horror Story. The chokehold that Evan Peters had on us and all the drama with the Dahmer series. People still love him from back then. I don't watch Stranger Things, but I've seen a lot of comparisons of the whole normal people scare me with whatever's up with the Hellfire Club t-shirts. I guess it's similar. I used to have the normal people scare me water bottle, so I can't say anything. I'm gonna line my lips really quickly with a black. This one is Oblivion by Glam Goth Beauty. And for the classic black cherry lip, I'm using Besame Cosmetics in Noir Red. Alright, and this is the completed look. Thank you so much for watching my fall makeup Tumblr girl transformation. If you like this video, please make sure to leave a thumbs up down below and subscribe to my channel as well. To keep up with me better, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Marilynmugbeat. I'll see you next time. Bye.